Okay, I wanted to make a little video to talk about some of the responses I got on my Instagram story from the other day. I'm making this on my photo booth on my computer, and I think it's fitting because I'm talking to my computer so much these days that I thought it would be fun to film in this way. But basically, where's my phone? Basically, I asked on Instagram. Let's see. I asked tips for working from home. I don't know, I had to look that up to figure it out, but here we are. And I basically said I've been working from home since March, and while I know that that's a huge privilege, I'm finding it really difficult to separate my work home life, how to feel productive when every day feels the same, and to feel like a good employee when I don't have as much interaction feedback with my coworkers' boss as I did before. Am I alone in this help? So clearly I wasn't in a good place when I sent that. And I'm really appreciative for all the people that responded with their tips and tricks. And I won't name anyone just in the spirit of anonymity, but I really appreciate anyone that sent me feedback. And so it feels silly for me to give advice right now because I'm like, I don't know, I literally asked for advice because I'm not doing super hot on the whole working from home thing, but alas, here we are. But this is more community advice. But I think the first thing I'll say before I get into the tips, and I was really grateful that people sent me tangible tasks I could do because I think so much of working from home is it's so, in many ways, undiscovered territory for a lot of us. And so to know that there's like some concrete steps I can take makes me feel a lot better. But the first thing I want to say is I think the overarching tip that I'm giving myself is that I just need to give myself a little bit more grace and compassion. I think we're in the middle of a year that is so disruptive in so many ways we've never experienced before, with the pandemic, with all of the inequity we're seeing, which has been existing but just feels ever the more prevalent this year. I just think that this is such a disruptive time, yet we're expected to be just as productive as normal. And that's really hard. So I think the biggest piece of advice is just acknowledge that your ability to be productive, whatever that means for you, may be different than it was last year, and that's normal. I also think that I've been reframing it in my mind of like, oh, why am I so disrupted by all that's going on? And instead of thinking something's wrong with me, that I'm taking it that serious and that personal, all the things that are going on. Instead, I'm thinking, oh, this is like a wonderful invitation from my mind to be more aware, of other people's experiences, of my own experience, and the things that are happening in our world. So I think just reframing from, oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I so sensitive? To, wow, I have this great gift of compassion. I have this great gift of self-awareness. I have this great gift of, awareness. And I think instead of making myself feel bad for those things, I'm trying to see it in a more positive light. So when I get into these tips, I just think the biggest thing is remembering that, this is just a really disruptive time. And we're all doing our best. And something that makes me feel better too is to think about my coworkers and, my family and my friends. And when things happen that aren't ideal, I try to think like, as out of control as I feel, the people in my life feel those exact same things. And as unprepared as I feel to work from home in some ways, and as unprepared as I feel for this post-pandemic life, everyone in my life is feeling the same thing. And I think that can be really tricky because we're all kind of experiencing these disruptions at the same time. And I feel like a lot of times previously to this pandemic, a lot of the things that we experience in our life were individual. And, maybe one of my friends is having a hard time, but I'm doing okay. So I have the emotional capacity to reach out and to be a good friend. But I think we're realizing that we're all going through this right now. So it's hard to be a good friend. It's hard to be a good person to yourself, even a good friend to yourself. And so I think just having an understanding before I get into these tips that, one, your productivity levels are probably different, and that's okay. Two, give yourself a little grace and compassion that, there's nothing wrong with you. This is a very disruptive time and you're doing your best. And 3, try to give that grace to other people. With that being said, I think the biggest tip that I heard about and that I've been trying to implement in my life is changing your environment, your clothing, your presentation, kind of your surroundings as much as you can between your home life and your work life. So right now we're in my home office. Basically, I transformed the mud room in our apartment to be an office. And I think just having a place where I go just to work has really helped me. I've never been someone who works from bed, which is totally fine if you do that. But I think, actually that's so not true. I said that, but I do work from my bed sometimes, like in the nighttime. Anyway. But I think just getting up, let me rephrase. The thing I do right now that I wish I did differently is changing my clothes between nighttime and daytime. I'm someone that, like, as I work from home, I like to be comfortable. So often I'm in sweatshirts, I'm in sweatpants, and those translate very well to sleeping. And so sometimes just having that reminder to change my clothes, which sounds gross, but it just happens so easily. Reminding myself when I shower in the morning, I feel so fresh, I feel so ready. Sometimes I put on a little makeup. I think just making those intentional choices to go from this is my sleep rest time to this is my time to work. And I think in many ways that mirrors how I got ready for work when I left to a different place to go to work. I would get up, I would shower, I would change my clothes, I would get all my stuff together, and then I would leave. And so just trying your best to mirror those things in your work from home space. Another thing that I was obsessed with before the pandemic, but it's just taken a new level, is work stationery or just like writing utensils. I think having like I have this notebook that I write all my work stuff in. It says Random Thoughts and Big Ideas. It's from Barnes & Noble. And it just has, lines, and it has the date so I can date all my stuff. And I think just having one central place to take all my notes from my meetings and stuff and, write myself little to-dos has been really helpful. So I think making sure that you have the materials that you need within reason, because I've taken it to a level that's like, I bought this little mini desk calendar from Target. Do I need this? Probably not. But anywho, we're all doing our best. Another thing that Nico actually bought me for my birthday is this agenda. It's kind of fun. It has like little figures on it. But it has, it's a planner. But I feel like, and anyone who uses a planner, maybe you can understand this, but I go through phases with my planner. Like sometimes it's my BFF. I write everything in it. And sometimes I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's been 4 months and I haven't written a single thing in this planner. But this week I actually challenged myself to write down my work tasks within the planner. And that kind of helped me to like schedule my days. And instead of it feeling like, oh my gosh, I have these 1 million things to do, I had, clear attainable goals for each day. And something that helped a lot too is, at the end of the day, I would take whatever didn't get done, because of course you always think you can get more done in a day than you can. So then I would just put it on to the next day. And I think at the end of the day, spending some time and just making yourself a to-do list for the next day, or writing down things that you need to remember the next day, kind of takes it out of your brain and puts it somewhere else. So then I can really like set it down and just be done with it for the day. Has been really helpful. So I really recommend a planner and a notebook. It's not revolutionary, but when you really actually write in them, they're quite helpful. So let's see, what else did I write down? Oh, this is a big one. So another tip I got was breaking up your 9 to 5 and taking breaks. I am so bad about this because I just kind of feel like my 9 to 5 is my work time. I'm getting paid to do work during that time. And so I feel guilty whenever I even go to the bathroom. Like, I just feel so guilty if I'm doing anything unwork related during that time. But I think I needed to restructure my thinking about that. And really put myself from, time spent to goals accomplished kind of mindset. So instead of thinking, I'm going to spend this amount of time on something. I'm thinking more like, what am I doing during that time? What am I getting done? Um, and for this doesn't work for everyone, but for me, it really worked to kind of think about, chunking my time instead of this big giant 9 to 5 block. I can go, you know what, from this time to this time, these are the things I hope to get accomplished. And then from this time to this time, I'll make myself lunch. So I'm not, eating at my desk, just kind of feeling like that I'm glued to this chair, which is how I was feeling. And I think that's something that is a work in progress and I'm still working on, is kind of understanding that there's going to be times during that 9 to 5 where you're taking a break. And, when I worked in an office, I would take breaks all the time. Not all the time, but you'd go get coffee or you'd go to the bathroom, you would go eat your lunch in the lunchroom. Like you had these kind of structured breaks, but you knew you were at your physical workplace, so it never felt like you were like goofing off or wasting time. And I feel like we just don't have that at home. So I've been trying to be kinder to myself about, it just is unfeasible for me to stare at my computer from 9 to 5 and be productive those entire 8 hours. So really rethinking how I structure my day. And there's a lot of research too that taking breaks makes you more productive. So I think seeing it less of a weakness that you need to take a break and more of an investment in your ability to be productive and your ability to get stuff done. And again, just that same overarching theme of you're not going to be as productive as maybe you were before, and that's okay. So yeah, taking breaks. I think another big thing is getting outside, because there will be days in this pandemic that it'll go like 2 days and I'll be like, I have not left my house, like not even left my house. Because sometimes, so I live with my parents and sometimes it's like a house and then there's like a mother-in-law apartment. So sometimes my parents will walk our dog, Alpha. And when they do that, I feel like, I don't need to go walk him, but I probably should still leave the house. But there will be days that go by that I don't. And so a big thing for me is just reminding myself to get outside, even if it's for 15 minutes and I literally just drink my coffee at a chair outside, just making sure that I'm getting some fresh air, and I'm moving around. Another big thing is exercise. Before the pandemic and still, I'm just like not a big exercise person. I have a very complicated relationship, with body image and fitness and all that for another time. But I think I always saw, I always saw planning fitness and planning exercise into my day as something with the goal and the mindset of changing my body. But I think in the pandemic, I really have a further understanding of, no, I'm planning this time to go outside and it's not going to be strenuous. Maybe I'll walk around the block, but it's not, that activity, that exercise is not for my image. It's for my insides and it's for, my body just feeling better. So that's something. Make sure you leave your house, which seems like a given, but you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't happen. On that same vein, another thing that I got a recommendation about is setting a commute. So if you work from home, perhaps when you get up and you do those things, you change your clothes, you maybe put on some makeup, you maybe take a shower, After that, maybe go for a walk and have this set walk that you do around your area and have that be your walk to work. And when you're done at the end of the day, you go and you do that same walk just so you can have kind of that commute experience and that distancing from going right from your chair to right to lounge mode, I think sometimes it can be hard to set work down, and especially I work in research and sometimes those ideas, the things I need to do are always percolating up here. So it's nice to kind of have a shock to the system of being outdoors, and right now it's so cold, so I feel like the cold kind of switches your gears a little bit. I haven't done that yet. I'm acting like I've done that, but I have not. But that's something that I think would be a nice thing to do. You know what? I did it one time, and it was nice. So all of these are, tips from other people that I think would be helpful. Not all of them I have implemented, and I think that's another thing is, we're not going to change overnight. We're not going to become pro work from homers overnight. Like, maybe if you can think of one of these tips I've given and implement that and see how it goes. And again, just be gentle with yourself. This is such an unprecedented time. I swear we hear that all the time, but it's so true. Like, none of us know what we're doing, literally at all. So give yourself some compassion, give yourself some grace. And I would love if, in the comments below this video, we could just kind of have a space where people talk about, some of the challenges that they're facing, and kind of have that be a group space where we can share how we're feeling, where we can share some tips. And my DMs are always open if anyone wants to chat, and I don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to listen. And maybe this will be an ongoing thing where I make videos with things I've learned from working from home. You'd think after 10 months we have it together, but I certainly do not. And I'm finding the whole reason I put the poll on Instagram was I wanted to know, like, if people felt that it was easier or harder working at home now. And a lot of people felt like it was harder. And I think that for me, it's harder in the sense that at the beginning of the pandemic, I wasn't optimistic, but I guess I was a little optimistic about how fast this whole quarantine experience would go, and the timeline of it. And right now it just feels I feel more unsure than ever before of when this will end, and that kind of feeling of like, will this ever end, has made it difficult. Before it was like, oh, this is kind of silly, like, I'm working from home, that's so silly. But now it's like, oh, this is like the new norm, and how can I accommodate that in my life? And I think also working from home is a huge privilege. I'm not putting my body at risk out in the world. And so in my household, 2 people work from home and 2 people work out in a medical clinic. And so I definitely have seen how that experience is different, and the challenges of that experience. But I think it's important to understand that, as this is a privilege to work from home, there's also challenges to it. And so I'd love to create kind of a community discussion below. I'm always needing more tips of how to be a better person working from home. But I just hope, if you get nothing else from this video, that, you're doing your best. Things are really hard. It's okay if you feel like things are hard. It's okay if you feel like your mental health is different than it was before, and maybe for the worser. It's okay to feel disrupted. It's okay to feel really hurt by what's going on in our world. It's okay to feel that collective grief and sadness. And you're doing your very best. And that is all we can ask for. So I hope you enjoyed these tips. It was kind of rambly, but if you find it helpful, share it to a friend. Maybe they can give us the enlightening tip of the century. Yeah. So this is an in progress thing. Yeah, that's it.